Hi, everyone. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Welcome to today's family conversation. We're going to talk today about strategies for easing your child's anxiety. This is the third in a series that we've done this spring. We did one about COVID-19. Last week, we talked with Kate and Taunya about the pandemic learning gap. And today we'll talk about easing your child's anxieties. I just want to let you know that all three of these have been recorded, and we'll share a link out to all of those recordings on Monday. Couple of housekeeping things. Due to the size of the audience, you're all on mute and your videos are off. However, please use the Q&A function to type in your questions. We'll leave time at the end to answer those. And like I said, if you miss any part of the discussion, we'll record it and send it out on Monday. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me introduce our speakers, two leaders from KinderCare on the education team, Kate Jordan-Downs and Taunya Banta.
All right. Hi. Good morning and afternoon to everyone. My name is Kate Jordan-Downs, and I'm the Senior Director of Education Programs. So I have the privilege of leading our teams that develop our curricular content, our professional development for our teachers, as well as our inclusion services team, which Taunya leads. And I've been with the KinderCare for about 7 years. I come from education background that spans high school all the way down now to early childhood, where I found my calling, and I'm really honored to be a part of this conversation today and to share a little bit, both professionally and personally, about this topic with all of you. So nice to meet you all.
Excuse me, and I am Taunya. I'm Taunya Banta, and I have been with KinderCare now for about 9 years. Previously, I was a teacher, so I taught in some of our KinderCare centers. I also taught in other community preschool programs, and then taught in the public school system, kindergarten and third grade, before coming back to KinderCare in this role on the inclusion services team, where I have the opportunity and the privilege to work with our teachers every day as they create just really warm and welcoming classroom environments for all of our kids and their families. I'm also the mom of a 2-year-old, and it is garbage day here today. So I apologize if there's any background noise. He gets super excited when the garbage truck comes. So but yeah, I'm a mom of a 2-year-old who has been parenting during this pandemic, who has a lot of my own concerns about his well-being and his anxiety, and just what the world looks like for him, since this is basically all he's known of the world. So I am really excited to be here with Kate, who is also a parent.
Yeah, I forgot the most important job there of my life. Yes, I have 2 boys, a little older, 10 and 7, who are in 4th and 1st grade, and in about 30 minutes we'll be busting through the door. So I'd be on mute during that moment.
But yeah, we are both super excited to be here, because it's not only something that we do as a profession, it's also our life as parents. So I hope that offers you all some reassurance. I mean, aside from just us, we also got some survey results back from a recent parent confidence survey KinderCare did that showed that 67% of parents are concerned about how this pandemic will impact their children's long-term mental health. So I share that just to reassure you, in case you need it, that you're not alone, because I know parenting, even during the best of times, can be a bit isolating, but especially now with social distancing and everything else that's been going on. I just want to make sure you know that it's normal, whatever normal is, and that you are not alone at all. I also, when I'm putting on my professional hat, want to just offer, I guess, a little bit of hope or a reminder that even during the best of times, stress is a normal part of life and of child development. It's actually one of the catalysts that helps children grow and develop. And so, while we probably have had stress in different ways that we're not used to over the past year, and it may have been more concentrated than we're used to. Um, it's also a really great opportunity for our kids to learn healthy coping skills, because this is not going to be the last time that they're faced with stress in their life. And so it's a great opportunity for us as parents to offer them a safe environment where they can learn, again, just those healthy coping skills that will serve them really well throughout the rest of their life. Um, I think too, one of the things I'll add to that, Kate, and I know, sorry, I'm just rambling over here, so feel free to interject.
No.
But the other thing that I have to remind myself of as a parent, that I know as an educator, is that when kids are struggling, or when it appears to us that our kids are struggling as a parent, that's actually a process of learning. So it's been really helpful for me to think of it that way when I see my child struggling and I just want to make it better for him, to know that like he's actually okay and this is his process of learning, and I can be there to help teach him those skills that he needs to learn. So I wanted to share that before we dig into some of the content, just as maybe some helpful framing for us as we think about ways that we can just better support our kids with some of the big feelings, emotions, and stress that they're dealing with right now.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, Tanya, as we go through this conversation today, the other part is that we can't help as adults and parents being impacted by the stress and anxiety that we see playing out in our children. And there is definitely a connection, I think, to some of the strategies and the supports that we'll talk through today that are certainly targeted and are going to support your children, but that you'll actually find support kind of your own mental health and anxiety along the way, and just how, both experiences, whether adult or child, kind of play off of each other, and how we can kind of be tuned into that in a different way, so that we're supporting not just our children, but ourselves and kind of the whole family unit. So that's just something I think we know all of the time, but I have certainly been more aware of during the last year, is just how much my state of mind impacts my children's, and vice versa. I think this is really a conversation about all of us, all humans in some way.
Totally. Yeah. And we're going to talk about things that are good for your kids, like Kate said, but then we're also going to talk about things that are good for you, because we know that as parents, we are a really integral part of helping our kids feel safe and happy, and all of that. So we have to be taking care of ourselves too. So that being said, we only have, a little bit of time here. I'm sure we could have a really long conversation about this. So we wanted to give you some of the strategies that we think will give you the biggest bang for your buck when it comes to really getting to the root of what's typically causes anxiety for kids. So one of the places, or the place that we'll start, is just with routines and consistency, because I think, while that may not immediately make sense how that impacts kids' anxiety, one of the things that most of us are faced with right now is uncertainty. And uncertainty can be one of the things that causes anxiety for kids. So, while there are definitely things that are out of our control, there are some things that we can still control and create that predictability for kids that will help ease any anxiety they may be feeling due to, just feeling uncertain. So I think, whether it is, there's a lot of different ways that anxiety or that inconsistencies can show up in our day to day that are big and small. So, maybe some of the bigger ones were when kids went from going to school at school to remote learning, to even something as small as maybe just their workspaces changing at home every single day. And for younger kids too, even if they weren't in school before, there's a big change with maybe both all of their family being at home at once right now, or having different people coming in and taking care of them and not knowing, who's going to be there which day. So all of those things can kind of play into this, those feelings of uncertainty that can give kids anxiety. And so I have found it really helpful just to think about our day to day and find the ways that we can keep things consistent. So typically, I find it best to, think about your day in terms of, your morning routine, maybe your afternoon routine, and then your bedtime routine. But it doesn't have to, you can make it work for your family, whatever makes the most sense, or whatever area of the day your child seems to be struggling with. Maybe that is, like I mentioned before, knowing who's going to be taking care of me that day. Is this a
Mhm.
mom day? Is this a grandma day? Is this a go to school day? Is it a home day? And having that mapped out for your child as well, because the goal is to help your child know what to expect. Because when they know what to expect, they're going to have that sense of certainty and control, or at least the illusion of control, which is going to help ease those anxieties. So there's a couple different ways you can do that. I feel for younger children in particular, though this would work for older kids too, having a visual schedule is really helpful. Heather, actually, can you pull up the example we have of one just so you can see? You can do it however makes sense for you. This is just an example of a bedtime routine. So, you can take pictures of your child as they're doing the different parts of their routine. We do bath, we put our PJs on, we brush our teeth, um, we read books, you get one kiss, and then you're going to bed and I'm leaving. Helping them to be able to visualize it, to rehearse it with you, to do it the same way every day and every night, again, is going to give them that consistency. Now, that's not to say, too, that routines can't change, that they can't be flexible, because obviously we all know, or at least maybe I'm just speaking for myself here, but flexibility was one of the biggest lessons I learned in this past year. The key to that is just giving your kids a heads up. Again, we want them to know what to expect. And so if there's going to be a change to your routine, like maybe mom's the one who typically puts you to bed at night, but tonight it's going to be dad or whoever instead of me. Letting them know that ahead of time so that you can answer any questions they might have about it, offer them reassurance will go a long ways. And again, just helping them feel really secure and certain.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting as well, from having just older boys and going through the exact same experiences Tanya's talking about right now, where there's the world's been turned upside down. What they used to know is pretty much changing every single day. And as we were kind of trying to figure out, like, how do we support this differently? How do we make it less contentious when we're trying to all just do our very best throughout the day and work and make sure that they're doing school? A thing that was really helpful and kind of changed the tone of our day-to-day routine was doing exactly what Tanya just talked about, like the heads up, like, hey guys, this is what's on the deck for the day. You have remote learning that you're going to have to dial into. Mom has a couple conference calls. Here's when I'm going to be free. We can touch base then. But also giving them a voice in the way that the day flows. As they're a little older, you're kind of able to have a different type of conversation. And what was a turning point for us was not just me telling them what the day was going to consist of, but also asking them, what kind of breaks would you like? When do you think that makes sense? Do you want to start with, your math work, or do you want to do English language arts first? Like, just simple choices and voice, opportunities for them really made a difference in their willingness and ability to kind of stick to a routine and get that stability that we're all looking for. It also really helped with the flexibility that Tanya was talking about, like, still today, but certainly in the earlier parts of pandemic and quarantine life, things were changing rapidly and frequently. And so by kind of already establishing this like culture of talking with one another about what the day is going to be like, they were able to also flex with it a lot easier because they knew that they had a voice in it, and that they could take in the new information and make adjustments. And so that was something from just an older school age perspective really helped change the way that like our days were flowing and working, and made all of us a lot happier.
Totally. Yeah. That reminds me of something I used to do in the classroom for older kids that I think would work really well at home too, which is to have basically like a weekly meeting. So a weekly family meeting where, you can get together to talk about, okay, this past week, what worked well? In addition to that too, what didn't work well, and what do we what do we want to work on in the week ahead? And everyone can throw out their suggestions. Maybe you pick a couple as a family that you want to work on. But it really serves to do just what you said, Kate, give them some control over, what the week looks like. And it also helps them to become self-managing too, which, is a win-win, because it means more time for you as a parent to do other things other than, helping them manage those things. So, yeah.
Taunya, do you mind if I jump in with a question? Because I feel like it's very topical that came through, and it's
totally
for a toddler who's 2 or 3, how far ahead do you give that heads up about a change in routine? Because as you know, it can throw them off kilter. If it's too early, it might ruin things for them. But I think it's a great question for the parents out there who have the younger set.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I think the important thing always to remember is that every child is different, right? So your child best. And if it's just going to give them more anxiety to know ahead of time, like way far in advance, then, maybe wait until a little bit closer to the time the change is going to happen. But I would say in general, what typically I've liked to do as a parent, and then also in the classroom as well, is to try and give them, maybe like a day's worth of notice. So I'm just going to use the bedtime example again. If there's going to be a change to the bedtime routine in the morning, as we're talking about our day and what that's going to look like, I might give them a heads up then, just really simple, like, oh, and tonight, grandma's going to put you to bed instead of mama, and blah, blah, blah. That often gives me kind of a gauge too, at least for my son, as to whether this is something that he's like, what, hold the phone is going to be, something we need to provide a little extra support for. If he's just kind of like, okay, whatever, and might have some feelings at the time. But I noticed that he will want to rehearse and process and talk about it more throughout the day if it is something that for him is feeling a little bit unsettling. And it gives us the opportunity to do that. And I can provide him the reassurance that, tonight, you'll do all the same things, and, build some excitement. Like maybe grandma's going to bring a new book that you guys can read together. And then tomorrow night, mama will be back and we'll do the same thing, blah, 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 over and over. I do provide reminders because, you don't know how much kids are going to remember throughout the day. If I tell him in the morning, he may not remember in the evening. So I do provide little reminders throughout the day as we're just kind of checking in and talking about what we're doing now, what's going to be next, to say, and remember, grandma's coming over tonight and she's going to do bedtime with you. So that it gives him time to kind of wrap his mind around it. And one of the things that I think is key to remember is just that, like, even if your child has some feelings and is upset when you leave, that doesn't mean that it didn't work. Kids are still going to have their reactions and their feelings to it. It's just an opportunity to help you ease them into it and lessen the anxiety they might feel. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, and I think what I would add to that too, my oldest son, he has ADHD and also a little bit of some baseline anxiety. And some of the things, actually all the things that Taunya just said held true in terms of you give them as much heads up as you can, and it helps gauge, what type of reaction you might be dealing with. But what I have found for Knox is that initial conversation is usually the hardest, right? Where it's like, what, why? And you kind of go through that whole discussion, right? But by giving yourself enough runway, and then by reinforcing a couple times throughout the day, it's letting him, talk about what he's upset about. It kind of goes, it dwindles down a little bit until there's some level of acceptance. To Tanya's point, like, Knox may not cry still when I leave, but he's disgruntled, right? But that's life, and he's been informed, and it is also, again, a learning opportunity, because these are all kind of things and skills that we would want to be reinforcing in our children anyway. And we're just giving a little extra attention and notice to it at this point, because we know everything's kind of disruptive at this point. So if any of you have children who you just know there's already a little bit of baseline anxiety that exists, or they have other, different needs, I think the early runway and the frequent reminders, and then being satisfied with disgruntled acceptance is probably a good formula as a parent to follow.
Totally. Absolutely. Okay. Well, shall we move on to the next strategy?
Yeah.
All right. So I think the next area of focus would be to really just address social distancing, because I think we're at a point now where, we're kind of moving away from some of the social isolation and thinking, or the isolation, I should say, and thinking about what it's going to look like as things start opening back up, schools, public places, and all of those. So, one of the reasons I wanted to point this out is just because I think oftentimes the impact that connection has on reducing anxiety isn't always immediately apparent, but making sure that your children have time to connect with both you and then others as well is really, really important, because not only has it research shown that it reduces stress levels, it's also one of the things that boosts resiliency as well. We are just relational creatures who need that connection, and so it's a really, really important thing for us to have. So, many of you have probably are well versed at this point in finding creative ways to stay connected while still being safe. But I would say, just in case it's helpful, a couple of ideas that I've heard or that I've done myself are just thinking about, whether it is, just randomly picking up the phone to talk to grandma or cousin or friends, or having more regularly scheduled times that you and your child can look forward to connect with others. So maybe that's every Friday night you do pizza with grandma and grandpa and watch a movie together virtually. Or, for older kids too, who don't get to go to the cafeteria and have lunch together anymore, maybe it's encouraging your kids to get a group of their friends to do virtual lunches every day together so they can still talk and connect. But whether that's something you've had focus on or not, I just want to remind you all that's actually a really important thing that you can be doing for your kids to help boost their resiliency and lessen anxiety and stress that they may be feeling.
We have a really great question actually that came in that kind of connects exactly to what you're talking about in terms of how we respond when things are opening back up and we're getting back into the spaces we used to be in. So the question says, my 3-year-old son is in daycare. Last few weeks, he has had trouble listening to teachers and to us at home. And he starts hitting or throwing toys when he gets frustrated or in a tantrum. That also includes changes in schedules, etc., which causes tantrums. How can I help him through this? I'm a full-time working mom with a spouse who often doesn't make it back for bedtime. So I'm really trying to figure out how to help our son.
Yeah, I can relate to that so much.
Me too. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have thoughts, Kate? I don't want to.
No, go ahead. I'll pipe in. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is, again, it's what we were talking about with some of the routine piece. I think, obviously there are things that you can't control, whether it's your partner's work schedule or, needing to take your child to care because you have to work. All of those things we can't control, but I think, helping your child to know, this is what's happening in the morning. We're going to go to school. This is who's picking you up at the end of the day. This is what happens when we get home. And then, finding creative ways too for your child to be able to connect with both you and his dad too. Because even sometimes with those like non-traditional work schedules, it doesn't have to be like a family dinner or bedtime when everyone connects. Maybe your time together is in the morning, and it doesn't have to be a long period of time. Honestly, just 10 minutes of focused connection that your child can have with you and his dad will go a really long ways. So, I'm guilty, I know, of trying to multitask too much, where I'm like, giving my son breakfast, answering emails on my phone, trying to unload the dishwasher. So one of the things that I would encourage you to do is just carve out, again, just 10 minutes, some intentional time to just focus on being with your son, because that will help a lot. I think the other piece of this too is to honestly just try and give your child a little bit of grace right now. Sometimes for kids, especially this age, they don't have the words to really be able to articulate to us, right? Like, hey, I'm feeling stressed, or I miss you, or, there's this thing happening at school that I don't really like, or whatever it may be, or I'm just, it's just been a lot of change. And so the way they communicate to us is through their behaviors, like having tantrums. And so I think just being as patient as you can, trying to offer that consistency and predictability at home, as well as those concentrated times of connection with you and your partner will be really helpful as your child just learns to adjust to this new routine. So I would just also say, because I know parent guilt is a really real thing, this is not your fault. You're not doing anything wrong. These are really typical responses to change. So if you're beating yourself up about it, don't. Just, give yourself a little bit of grace too.
Yeah, and I think like also, since it sounds like your child is experiencing some of the same struggles at school with the teacher, I think there's a really great opportunity to connect with the teacher and kind of like see if there's any common threads between when that shows up. Is it when you're transitioning from one thing to the other and your child doesn't want to stop what they're doing? Or is it a particular time of the day? Like some kids just struggle in the morning more than the afternoon, or vice versa. Or there might be a particular request that's being made, if it's like washing your hands for the 45th time or whatever it is that we're asking children to do. I think if there's a way to talk to the teacher and just see if there's any commonality there, that at least gives you something to focus in on and target in a different way that I think just allows for you to feel a little more effective than, kind of shooting in the dark like we do a lot of the time. So that would be the only other thing I'd add to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Taunya, do we have more? Do you want to shift into the family strategies a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Heather, we have a little poll. Do you want to pull that up? Pull that up. Pull up the poll.
I would love to run a quick poll.
All right.
Just a second. Okay.
All right.
Audience is saying that.
So if you wouldn't mind just taking a second to answer this one question, it's going to segue us into our next strategy, which, like we mentioned before, is taking care of ourselves.
Still going. Let's give it another 30 seconds or so.
Awesome.
All right.
Hey, Mom.
Sorry, guys.
All right. I'm going to end the poll and share the results.
Awesome. Okay. So it looks like, awesome. Most people are right in the middle. They sometimes find time for themselves. Got about 23 that never find time for themselves. And then 17% that do pretty consistently find time for themselves too. That's awesome. Okay, great. Well, the reason I wanted to bring that up, and it sounds like some of you at least may be able to relate to this, is I know, I mean, I think we hear, at least I hear quite a bit about the importance of, self-care and taking care of yourself. And oftentimes for me, that can be really frustrating because I think, like, when am I supposed to do that? At what point in my day do I have time to really dial in and take care of myself? And so, we know it's important because the reality is that when we're stressed, our kids are going to feel that stress too. And so, you know, not only do we deserve it just for ourselves, but also for our kids, it's really important that we do prioritize filling our own cup, as cliche as that sounds. Um, and so I wanted to give maybe just a couple of quick ideas of ways that when you feel like you don't have a lot of time, you can actually invest in yourself and take care of yourself. Um, because again, I'm like many of you. Oh, I think that, I mean, this is just the perfect example. It can be challenging to do that. So, um, I think one of the easiest ways that I've found to do it that's been most effective for me is to do what I've called just a joy list. And I know that probably sounds really cheesy, but I I have found that the things that I know are good for me and that are, helpful for self-care, like working out, eating healthy, getting enough sleep, like I know all of those things are important, but they don't actually bring me joy. They just don't. And so it just oftentimes will feel like another thing on the to-do list that I have to check off. And so what I've started doing is I just made a list of things that I knew there was a good chance that I could probably do every single day. And they're just really simple things that bring me joy. And so I try to do at least two or three of them. I actually saved my list to the home screen of my phone so that I'll see it more regularly and be reminded of it. But they're just simple things like going on a drive in the car by myself or taking a walk by myself or taking a hot shower, drinking something hot, eating a piece of chocolate. And I try when I do those things to be really intentional about enjoying them. Like, I'm not eating chocolate while I'm also answering emails. I'm trying to just take like 5 minutes for myself and really savor that chocolate, or go outside and just take a walk around the block where I'm not multitasking and just enjoy that moment. And that has been a really effective way for me when I don't have a lot of time to make sure that I am at least doing some things that fill me up each and every day.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things I struggle with, like, is I'm probably in the I never make time for myself
Mhm.
category. And it's not because I don't understand the value and all of that good stuff. It just doesn't occur to me in the midst of everything else that's
Mhm.
going on. But what I have worked on and that has helped is becoming aware of, like, the feeling when your anxiety's high, like just starting to recognize that feeling and being like, oh, like the reactions I'm having right now, or the ways that I'm managing something, it's not that it's actually extra frustrating. It's that I am at like a higher level of anxiety or stress. And I think what helped for me was being when I could just pause for a second and identify, like, you are feeling stressed and there's actually nothing bigger happening in your life than 25 minutes ago. That triggers me to do some of those things that Tanya just talked about, whether it's like 30 seconds of just breathing, right? Or grabbing a piece of chocolate, or playing, Farm Village on my phone for, two rounds or whatever it happens to be, to just kind of disconnect my brain, or refocus, I should say, my brain, away from the stress hormones that are going off, and kind of replace it with something that eases that. So even if you're not really disciplined and good about scheduling that time, I think the one thing you activate on and you could think about is just recognizing when you're at that level and kind of reactively taking those moments for yourself until it does become, a schedule or a better discipline.
Totally. Yeah. And I think, like, on the flip side of that too, there have been many more times over the past year, just because of circumstances, where I have not been the parent that I want to be, where I lose my cool, and do things that if I was in a better place probably wouldn't have done. And so I think it's also important to remember that we need to give ourselves grace. Like we're human. That happens. And when it comes to parenting, that is actually a really powerful opportunity for you to model for your kids what it looks like to, say to them, I'm sorry, what it looks like to apologize. That is not, that's not what I should have done. I should not have yelled at you like that. I was really frustrated. Next time I'm going to try and speak more calmly to you, and, just modeling what that looks like for them. Cause that's what we would hope for them too, right? As they develop into human beings. And, so yeah, I've tried to really, when those moments happen, instead of, beating myself up about it, just remember that like, it's what I do with it. Right. And use that as an opportunity to teach Lou. Yeah.
For sure.
All right. Well, I want to make sure we have time for questions and answers. So the only thing I will add in there before we get to the Q&A is just that if you are, anxiety can show up in a lot of ways. It can be, explosive behavior. It can be, maybe just like nail biting, hair twirling. It can be, kids who are just verbally expressing, hey, like this sucks. I don't like this. It can show up a lot of different ways, but if you have concerns for your child, I just want to reassure you that you know your child best. And just like when our kids have, some sort of physical illness, like a ear infection or some weird skin thing going on, and we say, oh, I'm going to take them to the doctor just so I can at least get peace of mind. The same thing applies here for mental health. If you're concerned, reach out to your pediatrician. If your child's in school, reach out to the school counselor, because they will be a great resource for you in helping to understand, is this maybe just typical, or is this something that maybe your child needs a little bit more support on, and they can connect you to those places too. So, I would say, it's hard to give a black and white answer of like, this is when you should reach out. But, so again, trust your gut on that. But, things like worrying excessively or, regression. So like maybe you have an older child that suddenly is wetting the bed again, or loss of appetite, not wanting to do things that they used to want to do. Those might be some signs that you should reach out to your pediatrician or school counselor to get some more support. So I just wanted to throw that out there before we get into the Q&A in case that's on anyone's mind. Yeah. All right.
Awesome. We've got one. We've got a couple that it can get going here on the first. So Taunya, my son has autism and anxiety. With this year being especially tough between changes of back and forth with virtual and in-person schooling, keeping the 6 feet, wearing masks, not being able to actually play with other kids, what are some things I can do to promote his socializing and help calming his anxiety about all the constantly changing situations?
Yeah, that's a great one. I think, so it sounds like it's the constant change. That's a big issue there. And then, social skills. How do we help teach those social skills? Remind me of the age of the child again, Kate, 3 years old?
The age doesn't say, but it says
okay.
in-person and virtual schooling. So going to assume at least in kindergarten, if not older.
Yeah. Okay. Well, again, I feel like I am harping on routines a lot here, but it's because I've seen how effective they can be in easing anxiety. So, again, for your child with the changes, I think as much as you can map out for your child what is happening when. So, we're going to be at daycare on this day. You're going to be at, in school on this day, helping him to understand what's happening when will be really key. And then in terms of the social skills, I think, personally, I've been spending a lot of time with my child. We've not had a lot of connection with other folks just because my husband has some underlying medical conditions. So I've been playing it pretty safe. And so I have found that a lot of rehearsing with my child, what those things looks like, I don't know, has been really helpful. So whether that is when we're on a walk and we see someone else who's walking, modeling what it looks like to say hello and, greet people and maybe chat with them a little bit. Or when we're playing, I'm not just playing with him as a parent. I'm trying to engage more like a child would, where not to say I'm pretending to be a child, but like I'm asking him to share. I'm talking about how we problem solve and, make a decision together if I want to play with the toy that he has and that he wants to play with. So I think I would recommend working directly with your child's teachers, because they can, I think the two of you together can come up with a really good plan to target some specific social skills that your child might need extra support around. But in general, rehearsing with my child has been really, really helpful. And I think it's helpful for a lot of kids, just so that they can start to internalize, and especially children with autism, where helping to kind of rehearse what it looks like to engage in a particular way, whether that's asking someone to play or sharing a toy and going over the specifics of what that looks like and how that might play out, as well as what to do if it doesn't play out the way you think it does. You might feel mad, but we're not going to hit them. What are some other things that you can do when you're feeling mad? That kind of role playing is really helpful.
Okay, so next question we have for older children, 12 or older, is it beneficial for them to know they have anxiety in order to help them manage it and teach them skills to cope? So I'd love to take a crack at that one.
Okay.
Got some, as I mentioned earlier, my 10-year-old who, close enough to the age range we're talking about, has ADHD, was diagnosed at 4, and also has some baseline anxiety. And in the beginning, I think for the age that you're asking about particularly, I think it actually is really helpful for them to understand what's going on and why some of the things that are hard for them are hard. And just kind of striking that balance of helping them understand, like, your brain works differently. Like, that is a lot of the conversation that I will have with Knox. Is like, the reason that it's hard for you to stay on track or maybe control your impulses, think before you act, is because your brain's wired a little differently. And so you have to work harder on some things than maybe your friends do. And that's why these couple of strategies that we keep talking about are really important for you to like try out and practice and be aware of, because then it helps you be more successful and less stressed. And I think the kind of philosophical debate there is, how do you not make it then something that they use as an excuse for things that are going on? But I find that most of the time, if you're keeping the conversation really open to just how their brain works differently, and how there are things that they have to work harder on, but then there are also things that are easier for them because of this cool way that their brain works. It helps empower them while still understanding, like, hey, there's just some stuff I'm going to have to, that's unique about me that I'm going to have to work differently on. So that's my personal perspective. That's also a little bit of professional perspective from what I've seen be successful in conversations with older children around a specific, either atypical neuro situation, or anxiety and things along those lines. So that would be my recommendation there, my thoughts there.
Yeah, absolutely. Heather, do we have more time for questions, or where are we at?
That's what I was just going to ask.
Yeah.
Why don't we do, I maybe have time for one or two more?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Our time limit, but if we can kind of wrap it up in the next couple minutes, that'd be great.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So we have 2 more questions on deck, Taunya. So I'm going to toss this one at you, and then I can do the last one.
Sure. Yeah.
So we are moving again and no longer living with grandparents, and we'll be switching schools. In the last year, we have lived with both sets of grandparents, attended 2 schools, and had lots of caregivers. My 4-year-old and my 2-year-old have had trouble adjusting each time we make a switch. We know we'll have to be at a different school for the summer and then another in the fall. What is the best way to prep them for that, since the routine will keep changing?
Yeah. Well, I think we've talked a lot about routines here. So hopefully, I think by now we can understand just the importance of, you know, even though there's like a lot that is changing in your guys' lives right now, really just looking at what you can control and making sure your kids know as much as possible what's going to be happening so they can anticipate it. And even though that anticipation of, okay, another new school or another new home may be challenging for them, if it's just happening kind of out of the blue, that's probably going to be even more stressful for them. So I would just encourage you to look for the things that you can control and make sure you're sharing those things with your kids too, like when the changes are happening. Um, but I would say, really, in situations like this, it's resiliency, right? That we're trying to kind of help foster in our kids because there's going to be a lot of change. And, this is going to be, I mean, this is shaping your kids. And while you may be concerned that it's shaping them in maybe damaging ways, I see it as it being something that's really positive because your kids are getting this opportunity to learn how to flex and adapt and change. And those are all really helpful skills to have in life. And so, um, the first thing that came to my mind was just thinking about how, as a family, you can all work on building your resiliency together. And I think there's a couple of key ways that you can do that. And your 2-year-old is going to be looking more for kind of that external confirmation. So your 2-year-old is probably going to be looking to everyone else to see how they're feeling and may just need more physical reassurance. Like they might be a little more clingy or have more tantrums. And so I think they just need your calm presence as much as possible to reassure them that it's going to be okay. But for your 4-year-old, your 4-year-old would be totally game to join in on some of these family resiliency activities, which I think a great one would be 3 good things. And so that's basically just the practice of gratitude. And it's, I won't get into all the brain science around it, but essentially what it does is it helps shift our attention from the things that are, negative or concerning. And that's the natural place our brain is wired to go, and moves it to the things that are really good and helps you focus on the positive things in your life, which in turn boosts your resiliency. So, I would say maybe find a time of day that it makes the most sense for your family, whether that's a mealtime or right before bed, and then together just talk about 3 good things that happened that day, because it'll help you all to focus on the good things. I think another one that is great for it's great as kind of a preventative strategy, but it's also great in the moment if you're starting to notice that your child's like kind of building up or feeling anxious, is to practice breathing together. There's a lot of research that shows that it's just not just a nice thought, that breathing actually helps to reduce the stress hormones in our brain. And so, for younger kids, one of the ways that I like to encourage them to breathe deep is you can just use your 2 fingers and you ask them to smell the flower with 1 finger and then blow out the candle with the other finger. And doing that several times will help to kind of release any of that anxiety or stress that they may be feeling. So those are just a couple of things that I think will help for, the inevitable stress that they're going to feel. But rest assured that, at least from the outside looking in, it seems like though there's been a lot of change, this is going to be something that will set your kids up really well in terms of who they're growing and developing into be, because they're going to know how to be flexible.
Yeah. And a quick 10-second add on to that, Tanya, for your 4-year-old, I think, because the environment's changing a lot with school and caretakers, maybe part of your conversation heading into a new school this summer and then another one in the fall is like, hey, buddy, what's going to make you feel good when you get there? There's some things you could take with you that would make it a little easier. Maybe it's a picture of mom, maybe it's your favorite, stuffy, whatever it happens to be. But ask that question, see what they say, and then make a little kit and let the teachers know, hey, this is what my child's identified. That's going to help them feel comforted when they get here, and please use it. So that's my add on there for your 4-year-old.
That's a great idea.
Well, thank you guys. We're unfortunately out of time. Some great questions that came through, and thank you both Taunya and Kate for answering those questions and for the great ideas. Just to plug our website, we do have a blog with some great articles that these two have contributed to. So there's lots of resources on our website for you there as well, if you go to our blog. And everyone have a great day. Again, Taunya and Kate, thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
Ring, ring.